about. Most of this is just carrying forward county's current requirements for required improvements. I did want to touch on just a few things. The first is we've added a summary table so that you can just go right to the beginning of this chapter and see what type of improvements are allowed based on your proposed development type. Excuse me. There are a couple of new things with street improvements I wanted to touch on. One are some new connectivity standards. So the draft proposes to require new developments to connect to any stub streets that are immediately adjacent to the property, and to provide new ones to sort of consider how adjacent properties might develop and make sure that streets are stubbed to provide future connectivity. We have proposed to require public streets in all major subdivisions unless the BOC allows otherwise in a conditional zoning district. Private streets would still be allowed in minor subdivisions. However, we propose to eliminate the county standard road and just require private streets to meet NCDOT standards just like a public street. We've carried forward the private, it's called easements now in the code. We propose to rename those as private driveways. The draft proposes to allow up to 15 lots off of a private driveway. We've had some more discussions with staff on that, and it sounds like we might be moving that back down to six lots? 5 lots. 5 lots or less.
Sorry, a quick question about the public street requirement. Have heard from developers recently that we're in some sort of special zone in North Carolina where they're not allowing for utilities underneath public streets, and that's caused problems for some developers. Have we gotten any feedback from them on this requirement?
Yeah, it's hard to envision with DOT, that is not allowing, they make all the utilities to be located outside the right of way. So from the DOT perspective, here's where they're coming from. If the utilities are in the road, it's all good and fine. And then if DOT has to widen that road in the future, like 15501, they're responsible for relocating those utilities, so we taxpayers pay for the relocation of those facilities. That's why DOT, the division, is taking that more seriously. It's not that they want to be mean, it's they're protecting the taxpayers.
That makes sense to me. I'm just curious how much.
And also just the maintenance damage too, so water lines break all the time, you go and dig it up, and then you got a pothole, you got a piece of section of road that's gonna fail. Regardless of how they repair it, it's never gonna be right.
I think it's right.
Yeah.
But we've been running into problems with utilities being pushed into buffers. That seems like where that was.
So you can't go to buffers. Like riparian buffers?
No, view shed buffers, tree along roads, on the road frontage.
So they still allow them in the right of way, it's just they have to be behind the ditch. They're still in the right, they're still in the DOT right of way, which is gonna be clear.
Okay.
It's just pushing those utilities, county water lines, sewer lines. And then sewer is the one that always comes up. All the other utilities are outside, they're at the edge of the right of way. If it's the fiber line, whatever, they're, the gas line, they're all in the right of way, but outside the pavement. It's the sewer that's causing the developers the heartburn. But there is a rationale from DOT and why they are saying that. And it is, I guess it does vary by division, that's the way our division is.
Sorry for the sidetrack.
Other required improvements, again, these are all just carried forward. One new thing I wanted to point out is a setback requirement for private wastewater treatment facilities. There was a concern that we heard about those being placed on the edge of new developments. So essentially having more of at least a visual impact on neighbors and adjacent property owners versus the people who are served by that facility. So we have a sort of a tiered setback based on the size of the development. So larger developments require a larger setback. Yes.
Can you give an example of a monument or lot marker in this context? Just so I can visualize it.
They're like the pins that mark property corners.
Okay. And what's the monument? Is that the same thing?
I believe, yeah.